What's going on again, guys? This is the Club of the Man 1993 coming at you for the 12th edition of my Retro WrestleMania review series. We are on WrestleMania 12 now. We look back at what I consider seeing that this was a pretty solid WrestleMania. I know looking at the critics, some people say this is definitely one of the more underrated WrestleManias because there is a lot more of like the better ones that come. But this one, probably the best one we've seen so far. A little bit better than WrestleMania 10. WrestleMania 10 was good, but this one I felt like it just had a really solid card, really solid story going down the line. And also, a surprise as I'm doing a lot of research was because back until like 1998 or 1999 or whatever it was, the WWF was really getting their rear ends handed to them because of the emergence of WCW, as they were a huge threat to them. And as I said, in 1995, they had a small roster. In 1996, they still had a small roster as well. So the depth wasn't all quite there. But the stars who were, either coming in or still around, they were getting built up pretty strong, which it helped them to still have at least a solid show. And it's only a show a little under 3 hours. I think it was like 2 hours and 45 minutes, I think this show was. So, good run time. There was only, technically there's only 5 matches on this show. But including like something else that wasn't a match, it was more so just a fight, there were 6, which was very entertaining. We'll talk about that. But overall, there really wasn't really a bad match on this show. I know one match people may say was bad because it was a squash match, but I still thought it was acceptable for what it was. So let's get right into it. This is the WrestleMania, March 31st, 1996. The location was at the Arrowhead Pond in Anaheim, California. We started off with what I thought was a decent tag match. Wouldn't consider it a strong opener, but I thought, it still put on a solid show. Just, with a bunch of veterans here, just getting the chance to be on the card, put it on together, a pretty good wrestling match. We had Vader, British Bulldog, and Owen Hart, the heels, with Jim Cornette, taking on a team of Yokozuna, who had turned face, Ahmed Johnson, and Jake the Snake Roberts, the future Hall of Famer. It was a decent opener, and we had a mix of, some high flyers, or I didn't say high flyers, but, just lightweights and some heavyweights in there as well. Vader, I think this is Vader's first WrestleMania, and a lot of people do have a lot of good things to say about Vader, so I look forward to seeing what he does. I thought he had a good show in this match. British Bulldog was a heel in this match. He's usually been a babyface, so we'll see where that goes. And of course, Owen Hart as well, just continuing, just the great performances he had as well, even though in his cut short life. And then Yokozuna, I thought, for being a babyface, even though he always was really the most healthiest wrestler with his big weight and stuff like that, I still thought this is one of his best showings he has had. Besides his shots with the title he had. Ahmed Johnson, apparently he's, was someone who had the potential to be a good star, but he did suffer a lot of injuries in his career. So his time in the WWF was very limited. And of course, Jake the Snake Roberts, we all know what he was best known for, and as he's now a Hall of Famer. And the winners were the heels, though. Vader, Bulldog, British Bulldog, and Owen Hart. So, decent opener. Not much to complain about. Not an amazing match, but it was still a solid opening match to sit through. We then had what was not a match, but it was more so of a just a fight. And for what it was, I thought it was pretty entertaining. It was Goldust and Rowdy Roddy Piper. This was like, Bizarro Man and a guy who's like a real man, pretty much. Goldust, was probably at his best, as today Goldust is now one of the most underrated talents on the roster. I mean, he's had his feuds, but I think he's deserved a lot more than what he's got in his career. But this was probably him at his best, being the awkward guy who has that bizarre attitude. He liked to touch people up. He would, just make weird moves on people. And this match as well, him and Piper, Piper, who's more the man, I believe this may have been Piper's last match in the WWF until he goes back to WCW. I can't remember. I can't remember what it was, but they had a backstage brawl, and then Goldust escaped in his gold limousine or whatever who's driving, and then Piper got into his car, and throughout the show, you showed them chasing each other throughout California. It was meant to be like a parody of the O.J. Simpson chase, which was despite it probably done several times, it was also done in Seinfeld couple other shows, I believe it's been done, but I thought it was still a classic to watch. These two just go at each other, and Piper tries to track down Goldust until they get back to the full circle of the arena. They get out, and they eventually do brawl, get to the ring. There was some blood involved. Goldust again just continues to be just his bizarre self, feeling up Piper awkwardly, doing the whole thing, and he even kissed Piper, I believe, which I think that's what really set Piper off, and he just beat the crap out of Goldust. He even went as far as ripping off Goldust's ring gear, and underneath he was wearing a bra and panties. Random, but very entertaining, especially with how just bizarre the characters seemed to be. I thought it was very entertaining. I enjoyed it. But yeah, this was definitely a nice addition to this card that only had 5 matches, and then this little fight, this little story going on here between Piper and Goldust was pretty entertaining as well. I just wish Goldust would have. There's more to come to Goldust, but I feel like his career is very underrated. He deserved a lot more than he got, but we'll see what happens in upcoming WrestleMania as well. So I do believe in WrestleMania 13 he has a match against Triple H, I think. I can't remember, but we'll see what happens next year when we get there. And speaking of future legends, we had it was the first WrestleMania match for Stone Cold Steve Austin. He had Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man in his corner. He's taking on Savio Vega. And this, despite being, before Stone Cold Steve Austin became the legend that he was, this was still a solid match. This was in 1996. I think in 1997 he suffered an injury that, despite limiting him throughout his career, he was still able to become a legend despite him being limited with his health and such. This though was before he was really Stone Cold. He was still donning with the ringmaster gimmick, which wasn't a great gimmick for him, but he was still very agile and a great performer, and he knew he had the potential. He just needed to find the correct character as well. So he's a ringmaster. He's still a heel here, pairing up with the $1 Million Man. I think he had the $1 Million title also as well on him. But again, this is probably the most agile we were able to see Austin. People do wonder, though, what would have happened if Austin wasn't as limited. But even when he was limited, he was still great. He was still the future Hall of Famer he was going to be. And this match against Savio Vega was a really solid debut for him. And needless to say, even when he wasn't just Stone Cold, he still put on good matches. So I thought this match was really solid. And next year, though, in WrestleMania 13, which is mainly a one-match show, we will see him when he becomes the legend he became, Stone Cold, in that famous match against Bret the Hitman Hart, and one of the best double turns of all time. But we'll talk about that next year at WrestleMania 13. Speaking of which, as I mentioned before, we had Triple H. Well, at the time, he was Hunter Hearst Helmsley with Sable against the Ultimate Warrior, the returning Ultimate Warrior. I think Warrior had been semi-retired from 1992 to 1995. He made his in-ring return, but he wasn't back for too long, I believe, against Hunter Hearst Helmsley, which Triple H at the time did not have the game gimmick he had. He had some gimmick that was, he kind of the classical music, kind of similar to, a William Regal gimmick, pretty much. He has, and he was talking in British accents. It just, him coming out and seeing it, I'm like, this doesn't really look like Triple H, which it showed that, he did have to, go through some hoops to get to where he needed to be, including also, 1996 was also the year of that famous curtain call after where Diesel, Scott Hall, X-Pac, and, I don't think it was, HBK yet, but Kevin Nash and, Scott Hall, the two of the 4 members of the Clique, were going to be going off to WCW. And it was a steel cage match, a tag match. I believe it was, I think, Triple H and Kevin Nash against Scott Hall and HBK. I remember who the pairings were. But it was where they, they broke characters. They thought it was going to be the last time that they were going to be in a ring together. And they, all 4 hugged it out, which could have gotten them in trouble. The only person that really suffered from this was Triple H, because he broke character. He got a lot of heat for this. But Shawn Michaels was, the guy at the time. And then Scott Hall and Nash, they were off to WCW, so they had nothing to lose. So Triple H suffered from this. But this was not a good year for Triple H. And this match, itself was not good for him as well. I mean, the match I don't think was awful, but, as far as, putting, young talent over and, Ultimate Warrior, who had his issues with the WWF, he just weren't on good terms for like a decade. He wanted to legally change his name to Warrior, but the WWF was trying to sue him over that because they owned the rights to it. I know he did eventually go out to WCW for like a year, but, that was like his sunset ride or whatever you want to say on his career, and then he became a Hall of Famer, but then he died or had to become a Hall of Famer, but he still had a legendary, respectful career. But getting back to Triple H, in 2010, when he's built up in his WrestleMania feud with Sheamus, he mentions how I was in the same position as you were when I first started. My first WrestleMania, I wanted to jump on the biggest guy I could find. What happened? I got crushed. And let me tell you something. Triple H got crushed in this match. He even went as far as hitting the pedigree on Warrior. Just have Warrior just stand up right afterwards, and he had to look at his face like, you did not. And after that, it was just all Warrior just destroying Helmsley as he just squashed him and defeated Triple H in like a minute and a half or whatnot. So not really one of Triple H's best moments, I'd say. The match, though, was acceptable. I mean, I'm sure if I was watching back then, I may have been a little upset that, no one wanted that Warrior didn't put over the young talent in Triple H, but we all know Triple H has gone on to, having a future Hall of Fame career as well. So we'll definitely be seeing more of him in the upcoming years. And then we had WrestleMania Streak match number 5. It was The Undertaker taking on Diesel, or as we all know him as Kevin Nash. And as this was the last WrestleMania for Kevin Nash, since he was going to be going off to big-time rival WCW, and that's where he would be forming the NWO. And I know a lot of people say, Taker's first couple matches, like if you, as a fan of myself, who is, not seeing that many WrestleManias yet, just going back and watching them all now, you'd think that, the Undertaker must have had all these legendary matches. He did, but he had some bad ones. And the first 4 he had were either, average or decent to not good. Like last year's was King Kong Bundy, and then the year before, and the third one was with Giant Gonzalez. That one was the worst. But 2 of the 4 of them were at least acceptable. Those 2 just were like or awful. This was the first match that really started putting Taker on the map. This match with Diesel, and also it was also helping Diesel in a way because because as I said last year, he was kind of in the shoes of like the guy Vince McMahon wanted people to like. But he was in a tough position as he was feuding with Shawn Michaels at the time. And Shawn Michaels being a heel was too hard to be not rooted for because you just couldn't deny how awesome of a talent he was. But they, made Diesel a heel, and that's where he really just excelled. And this match as well with Undertaker, who was not as green as he's been the past few years. He was actually looked pretty good in this match. Put on a really solid big man match that we don't seem to get too often anymore these days. Like they both like worked really well together, great chemistry. Nash just being the guy who's just being full of his own cocky, like yeah, you see this guy, he thinks he's so good. Look at me. He hit 2 really solid jackknife power bombs on Taker, a lot better than the one that he hit to defeat Michaels at WrestleMania 11. But then that's when Taker started doing his signature sitting up, and he did after the second jackknife powerbomb. He would go on to though eventually defeat Diesel in I'd say probably his best match so far. We definitely get better. I know of a couple matches down the line, especially his match at WrestleMania 25, which I still consider the greatest match of all time. But we'll see how it gets there. But again, this was an awesome match to watch. And let's see what happens next for Taker to go on to next year. We then have the main event, the WWF World Heavyweight Championship match. A 1-hour Iron Man match between 2 of the best. Bret, the Hitman Hart, at that time, I believe, the 3-time World Wrestling Federation World Heavyweight Champion, taking on the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. This was kind of like a little bit like a Cinderella story for Shawn Michaels. he lost the year before to Diesel, and he did suffer a couple more setbacks along the way, building up as an underdog. Now, they're both baby faces in this match, but this was just about, who is the best. The one who has been, establishing himself at having some WrestleMania moments the past couple years. Well, WrestleMania 11, not really, but WrestleMania 10 was the Hitman's big moment. And, Shawn Michaels was just like that, that talent that, everybody just was just wanting to see him become the guy. He was just not, he didn't want to be just another wrestler. He was, the man that people wanted to see. He was the man people were selling out arenas for. He had the awesome entrance also coming down on the ropes from the top of the roof, which that was pretty sick. I enjoyed that as well. And this match is about, the two best going at each other. I know it was slow at first for like the first half, but then after HBK kicked the timekeeper and he got taken off on a stretcher, the match did pick up. It's just these two are just beating the crap out of each other, just, firing their best. They didn't really fire much of their finishers. And then it was getting on to like the last 5 minutes or so. There still wasn't one decision made at all in the match, as an Iron Man match is whoever has the most decisions at the end is the winner. And then, the match really picked up the last couple minutes, and for the last 30, 45 seconds, the Hitman did have HBK in the sharpshooter, and you're wondering, is HBK going to tap out? This is my first time watching the match. Is they're going to get like a pinfall victory and then quickly get another pinfall. That way we have a couple pinfalls and it's not just a 1-0 thing. Well, this match was worthy of being a 1-0 match because HBK did not tap out, and the regulation for this match ended in a draw with no decisions made. And Bret Hart thought that was it. He starts walking away. However, new president Gorilla Monsoon, who took over from Jack Tunney, informed us that this match was not over. There will be a winner. So Bret Hart comes back to the ring, and the match continues in sudden death. But then HBK finally gets the Hitman where he needs him, hits him with the sweet chin music, and the boyhood dream has come true as Shawn Michaels wins his first World Wrestling Federation Championship. And he would solidify himself as the guy until a couple years later when he went on his 4-year hiatus from WWF, not knowing if he ever would return until he did return eventually and have his first match back. I believe it was against Triple H at SummerSlam 2002. So I believe he finished up in 1998, I believe, if I can remember. But yes, just a great moment. The crowd popped. At the time, they had to have turned Shawn Michaels babyface before this feud started. He won the Royal Rumble for the second year in a row, as I said. He also had to defeat Owen Hart in a match at In Your House 6 to keep the spot. He did put his WrestleMania title shot on the line, as Owen Hart just always wanted to get after his brother. But this was just an awesome moment, a WrestleMania moment for Shawn Michaels, and just the beginning of him continuing to become Mr. WrestleMania. So, yes, that is a classic. I know some people definitely don't enjoy watching it because they feel like it's a good match, but they can't really watch it multiple times because it's long. It's an hour long. There was no decisions made. It was kind of slow, but you got to pace yourself in the match. And I felt, the story told here, just the two best, bringing the best out of each other, having a hard time trying to, pull out their best moves as well. It wasn't like, finishers watering down. These were guys who they were able to, outdo each other pretty much. And unfortunately, but in the end, it was Shawn Michaels who came out the victor. So that is it, guys. What are your thoughts on WrestleMania 12? Do you agree that it's a really solid show? I give it a B+. I thought it was a really enjoyable show with a lot of good matches. Nothing really, terrible with a classic. Nothing really too average either. It was all good stuff. I enjoyed it. I definitely recommend this WrestleMania, checking it out. Best one so far, I'd say. What are your thoughts on WrestleMania 12 again? Leave your thoughts down in the comment section. Be sure to click that like, subscribe, for more content on the channel as well. And I will be back up here soon again for my WrestleMania 13 review. And until then, guys, have a great day.